So I just wanted to make a quick video because it's been a little while and just update some things other people may not have been aware of. It's hard for me sometimes to keep up with the YouTube thing because I do like to put some effort into what I'm doing, and having the time to just sit down and do a whole thing is not always accessible to me. So a lot of times when I have thoughts about stuff, I'm writing it instead. So I just want to share, anybody who's interested in these things, where I'm writing stuff down, you can check it out, because I have two different Substacks. One is like my name and it's more personal, but it's more just whatever I want to talk about, kind of similar to the things that are on this YouTube channel. And the other one is the one I do for Tectonic School, where I'm trying to produce a little bit more developed thoughts on there with a particular goal. But I think most of the things would be interesting to a variety of people. So I would encourage you to check them both out. Put the links in the description. And I did recently, just this morning, I put out a couple of things, one on each. So on my personal one, I did this thing about reproductive technology. And I've kind of talked about some of this stuff on my channel before. You know, there's a lot of like dystopian kind of thoughts about what's going to happen with this stuff, artificial wombs and all these things. And it's interesting because Paul's been, having some stuff from Malcolm and Simone with their Base Camp channel on, and I read their book and I've been listening to their things. And it's interesting because I think that I agree with a great many things that they are in favor of, but because they don't have they're not building their religious system out of the Bible per se, or they're not so sure about the moral convictions in it. They are open to different things, and one of these things is that they are like going full head in embracing all the possibilities of genetic engineering, basically, and especially as it relates to reproductive health. And they're kind of like thinking, normal people aren't going to actually be able to have kids, and so we'll need to use technology to be able to stop the population collapse or prevent it from being as bad as it could be or something like that. And I don't know if that's true, but I was thinking about how, on the other side, the Christian impulse is just like, we got to pass a law so people don't do these things. But, I can't fully endorse what they're doing, but, something's going to happen. Either God will allow Christians to be so moved by these things that they are able to organize enough and pass a law against something, which seems pretty unlikely, or some other catastrophe could occur that stops these certain lines of research, or it could happen, and it could cause really terrible effects like we are imagining. But if it's not the destruction of the whole human race, eventually we'll get on the other side of these technological issues, and then we'll have these things as tools that we know how to use, and we'll be able to use them wisely. And perhaps Christians could make use of these things once they've been fully understood. And I think you can look back, and there's a lot of other analogs to this, things like just modern medicine in general, like the different surgeries that we've had, like things like organ transplants. There's a lot of good that happens through this, but there's always the question of if those who are driving technology forward are doing so with evil intent, will they ultimately be able to topple God and his plan? Only if God's not real. If God's real, ultimately he'll be in charge and get what he wants done. And so I think we have to have a little bit more faith just in that, or we can't just approach these things from the perspective of fear only. So that's one thing. And then, I think another example you could use is maybe something like the internet, because the internet comes around, people have all this access to all this stuff, and of course right away it gets filled up with pornography and everybody gets nuts with that. it seems like a lot of people are kind of getting over that thing. The negative aspects of it are becoming more visible, and instead you have like people learning that they were in a cult because of the internet. And this stuff goes both ways. There's a big war of propaganda, but like in general, if we believe that we're possessing the truth and we put the truth in a free exchange of information, eventually the truth should beat out the lies and the deceptions. It may take a long time, it may be a painful process, but that's ultimately what should happen. And if we don't possess the truth, if we think that we're right about something and we're actually wrong, the sooner we realize that, the better we will be in a position to move on and figure something else out. And so far, I will say, nothing has convinced me that the Bible is untrue or anything like that. But that's the thing. Like, let's let it happen and figure it out. Because systems that are designed to just manipulate people through withholding information or holding back progress or holding things back, I don't think those are good systems. And I think it's getting increasingly harder to make that work. So that was the thing I put out on my personal Substack. And then on the other one, I put out a thing for the Tectonic School, but really it was about, the Tectonic School idea is that people are working in businesses, and you might be connecting with other students who are working with a mentor in a different company, and everybody's going to a church, but it may not be the same local church. And so hopefully you get people that become friends that are going to different churches, and they're able to work together on projects and community building and things like that. So it's kind of a reaching across the aisle. And then I kind of took it beyond that to another example of like, what are some other ways that we could create programs or movements or just ways of looking at things that kind of reach across the church aisles, I guess you could say. And I think there's a limit to how far these things can go, but we already have like Protestants and Catholics will have no problem marching together against abortion or something like that. But do they feel comfortable worshiping together on the Sunday morning? Not necessarily so. But then again, you have an issue of like people deconstructing. And this was another one that I thought was kind of an interesting thought that Malcolm and Simone had, where they talk about they're building their own religion, and then they have a backup religion, and their backup religion is Judaism. And I thought, well, Christianity doesn't need to pick a backup religion because it's already so multicultural, but you could easily pick like a backup denomination. And I think if you look at the trajectory of a lot of these people that have maybe come through this corner in their deconstruction journey, it's like they were raised fundamentalist or evangelical or something. That's all they knew, and then their worldview's challenged and their faith falls away, but ultimately, secularity can't really deliver on whatever its promises are either, so they need to search for something else. But instead of going back exactly to their parents' church, they find some other thing, like a more traditional faith like Catholicism or Orthodoxy. And my kind of idea is, like, why don't we just, and this is something just even parents could do easily, why don't we just educate our young people more about the big array of different Christian traditions, and we can say this is why we believe ours is the best one, but it doesn't mean these other people aren't part of our larger family. Because I think a lot of parents would be much happier with the idea of like your child is not going to follow in the footsteps of your denomination. Like they don't like the particular church group you are bringing them to. But they could either become a secular person that has no religion, or they could find a home in a different Christian community, like a Catholic church or an Orthodox church. Or, going from one of those into like a Pentecostal church or an evangelical church. So, it could go either way. And I think, the vast majority of parents would much rather say, oh, I'm much more happy for my child to become a Catholic instead of being an evangelical than to become an atheist. And so, I think we could really work to make those things happen. And I went through some other directions in the writing too. But anyway, so those are some things that I made that are things you read. So I just figured I'd make a little quick video at least to tell people about it. And I'm always putting more stuff out on there, so not to be the trying to build a brand too hard or whatever, but the more encouragement I get from stuff that I do, the more incentivized I feel to keep doing it. A lot of it I'll still do regardless because it's helpful for me to work out my own thoughts, and especially with writing, helps me to work out my own thoughts. So that's why I've been tending to do more writing stuff, because I'm kind of maybe moving to a next place of trying to bring broader ideas together and make sense of them. So it's going to be a little bit more, been listening to more audiobooks rather than just, stuff that's going on around here and different things. So anyway, that's what's going on with me. So if anybody finds those things interesting, I would recommend you go check out the links and read some of those articles and leave comments there, or you can leave comments here or wherever. So thank you.